Alright, hello. Just want to make sure the audio is working, the music's not too loud, my voice isn't too loud. Alright, hi Joe. I see you sent a message a while ago. Let me know in the YouTube chat if anything's too loud, too quiet, too annoying. I see the video's coming in fine, so just let me know. So whoever's watching, welcome to the first stream. I kind of wanted to stream for a while now and just kind of show generally the design process of everything that I kind of create for my YouTube videos. Alright, cool. You hear me just fine. So one of the things I wanted to do is kind of create a very general tutorial on how to use 3D design tools. Right now I'm using a software called Autodesk Fusion 360, and there's a couple softwares out there that you can get for free. For this one that you can see on my screen right here, it's free if you set up an educational licensed version. You kind of just write that you're not really creating anything to sell, you're not really using it for anything other than education and kind of your own personal use. There's also other licenses that you can buy, but there's other softwares like SolidWorks, which is like more of a manufacturing technology type software that people use like in the workforce, and many others. I know a lot of people that 3D print use Tinkercad. I think there's a couple other browser ones. It's called Open something, but yeah, everything I'm doing today will be in Autodesk Fusion 360. So what we're gonna kind of do is I'm gonna make some simple designs and kind of show how all of these different tools you can see up in the toolbar up here work. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a coaster and kind of have like a design etched into it from a picture and show you how to use 2D sketches to kind of create 3D models, cut away from them and do everything. And then also, since a lot of the videos on my channel that are more popular have to do with computers, and especially some of the keycap videos I made, I'm going to show how to design a base keycap model. And then also after that, probably going to go a little bit into some of the projects I'm working on for anybody that's interested. So first thing I'll do is kind of show off a couple of these tools up here. I know that there's only 4 people watching, but I'm planning on taking this stream and kind of cutting it into a couple videos, maybe at least one, showing how to design some things. So for 3D design, the first thing you usually start out with are sketches. So what a sketch is it's a 2-dimensional drawing put onto a plane. So you can see right here these 3 yellowish orange squares. These are your planes that you can start the sketch on. So basically you have the origin right here, that big circle, the origin of this 3-dimensional grid that you have to kind of use as your play space. And then you have 3 axes. The red one's the x-axis, the green one is the y-axis, and the blue one is the z-axis. Depends on which way you look at it. It could be different ways, but so this is the xy plane, this is the yz plane, and this is the xz plane. So what I usually like to do to start is kind of just look flat down at it. So I click this plane to start a sketch, and then you can see once I do that, let me get out of here just to show you. I start a sketch. Once I click it, look at the top toolbar here, it changes from all of these options to these sketching options. So you can do a lot of things on your sketch to make basically a 2-dimensional drawing. If you draw on a piece of paper, that's a 2D drawing. So we're basically drawing on a piece of paper here to make a 3D model out of it, and I'll show you what I mean by that later. But so I'll kind of just show you how all these things generally work. So this is a rectangle. I know the way my screen's cut, you can't really see everything, but so this right here, this is your sketch palette that comes up whenever you press something up here to do something. Oh, thanks, Joe. Yeah, this one's loud as hell, huh?
I can start changing your physiology.
Swap it out.
Everything from your weight to your BMI.
Just gonna actually lower that a lot more. Yeah, this one's really loud too. Let me know if that's too quiet. I mean, we don't really need music, but it's nice to have, I guess. All right, so going back to this rectangle. So you can see here there's the different ways to kind of create the rectangle. you have the 2-point rectangle, which means wherever you click first, it makes one. You drag to create the second point to get this rectangle here. And then press Control Z to undo that. The other option is 3-point rectangle, which same kind of thing. You make 3 points to make a rectangle like this. And there you go. You kind of control the parameters that way. What I usually use is the center point rectangle, and I start right on the origin here. And the origin is 0 on the X and Y plane. So what I do here is I click the center, and then you kind of drag out so you can have like this type of this symmetric type of rectangle right at the origin. So you can either click to the size that you want to get the sketch that size, or pressing Control Z to get rid of it to show you guys something else. See how there's kind of numbers on the bottom and on the left here? You can control the dimensions that way. So let's say that I wanted a 1 inch by 1 inch square. I just press 1. You see the bottom one changed from 1.2 whatever it was to 1. And then if I press tab, it goes to the other dimension here, and I could press 1 again. And then boom, perfect square, 1 inch by 1 inch, and you're good. So I mean, we're making a coaster here. I don't really want a square coaster. I think I'm gonna make a circular coaster. So this is all well and dandy, but I'm gonna get rid of that. And then go to the next option, which, I mean, line is the next option. You can kind of guess what that means. Create a line somewhere so you can create whatever shape you want. You can keep clicking to make some type of whatever you want. And then boom, you got kind of like a closed object there that you can create a 3D model out of. But I'll get to that later because we're gonna do some kind of a little bit crazier than just making a circle and extruding it. But here is a circle. So like before with the rectangle, you have different options to draw your circle. 2-point, which is the same thing. You click 2 points, it makes a circle. 3-point, same idea, just with 3. 3-tangent circle, which I'll explain later. And then a center diameter circle, and then the 2. I usually use the center diameter circle. So click in the center for the same reason as the rectangle before. And then you specify your diameter. So right now, I have a coffee mug next to me and a caliper. So what I'm gonna do is measure the diameter of my coffee cup and go a little bit larger than that for the coaster. 1 sec. So it's about 3.5 inches. So I'm gonna say make like a 4 1/4 inch coaster. Give a 1/2 inch, about a 1/4 inch on each side. Extra for room. So what did I say? 4 1/4. Boom. And there you go. Now you got a 2D sketch, although it's kind of simple, 2D sketch that you can create a 3D model out of. So like I said before, you usually start all of your models with a sketch. So now once you're finished, you can click Finish Sketch, and boom, there's your sketch on the XZ plane like we selected to begin with. And then, 1 second. So down here, it's kind of like the history of everything you've done. So far, we've only done this sketch, so you can see, that's all you did. And we'll see later, since when we do more to it, what kind of this is used for. All right. So now you can see up here, there's Create Sketch, there's Extrude, Revolve, Hole, and all this other stuff that we'll eventually, hopefully, get to. So the next thing we want to do is extrude this. And what this means is, here it says for type you have extrude or thin extrude. Thin extrude basically means that it grabs like a thin feature of the sketch that you did and then extrudes that. But what extrude means in general is it takes the area of a closed profile, like it says here, and kind of drags it to create a 3D model. So you select the profile you want, and since we only have one profile, it kind of auto selects that since it knows, this is what we're trying to extrude. And then you can drag it to however thick you want, or you can specify it here like we did with the diameter of the circle. So for this, I'm gonna say, I don't know, maybe like a 3/8 of an inch thick coaster. Boom. Okay, so now we have a very basic coaster that if this is all you wanted, you could save this as an STL and 3D print it, which I'll show you guys how to do that once I actually make what I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to leave it at this, but all right. So there's another feature that we can do with a sketch other than extruding it, and that's cutting it. So these are kind of the main three features you need to do to generally understand most 3D modeling software. So the first thing, create a sketch. Second thing, extrude. And then the third thing would be to cut. So right now I'm clicking create sketch, and I'm clicking a plane that I want to sketch on. So initially we only had these three options, the XY plane, the YZ plane, and the XZ plane. Now we have a couple other options because we have two more planes here. We have the bottom surface of this coaster and the top surface of this coaster. And for those of you that don't know what I mean by plane, it's just kind of a surface, a two-dimensional, there's two axes going through it, a surface that you can select to draw on. So right now I'm going to select the top and then create a new circle. Because what I'm trying to do here is cut down a little bit to make like a little ridge about the edge. So we know that we got a 4 1/4 inch diameter coaster. So to create a kind of like a 1/4 inch on the inside here, well, I'll say 1/8 of an inch because we want to make sure that the cup fits. You subtract a 1/4 inch from this outer diameter and you make it just 4 inches. So you click 4, click enter, and boom. Now we got another circle, smaller circle on the inside here. Now, see how when I hover my mouse over an area or a closed area on this, it highlights it because I can select that to either extrude or cut it or do other things. If I select this outside one as well, it also highlights this, so I can extrude or cut that if I wanted to as well. But for what we want to do, I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to type in the letter C. And C is the shortcut. Actually, C is the shortcut for circle. If I hit E, that is extrude as well. But in Autodesk Fusion 360, they kind of use extrude to cut and extrude. And you'll see what I mean. I can drag downward, and it kind of makes this volume red. And that means that it's cutting it and getting rid of it. We can go all the way through to just make a ring. As you can see here now, there's nothing on the inside. So I press Control Z to undo that. Going back, we can click this again, and then click E again. And now what I want to do is kind of make it, so I made it 3/8. I want to cut it by 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.0125 inches. And so I want to go down, I'm going to go negative 0.125. Boom. And there we go. Now we got a coaster with a little lip around the edge of it. So what else can we do to kind of show you how to use this? There's things called fillets and chamfers. And these are all in the Modify tab. And what the Modify tab does is it modifies the 3D model that you currently have. So usually what I use a lot here is fillet and chamfer, which I'll go through. And a lot of the other stuff, I use shell a bit, which we'll talk about when I model keycap. But a lot of the other stuff I don't really use. So right now I'll show you what a fillet is. So let's select the bottom one, the bottom surface of this. So if we click this and we say like, I'll type in a number and explain in a second. So I just typed in 1/8 of an inch, and what it did is it kind of rounded this edge here. So what a fillet is it creates a rounded edge, and what you specify is the diameter, or I'm sorry, the radius of the circle that you want this curved edge to be. So if I made this larger, like 0.25, you'll see it's much more rounded. Made it 0.5, probably won't, it's like up to the very edge of this. Kind of looks ridiculous. But that's what a fillet does. I don't really want one there. I just wanted to show you how it works. So the other aspect of that that's pretty similar is a chamfer. And what a chamfer is you select an edge, and then same thing, you kind of specify a distance. I'll do 625, and it adds like a kind of just like a triangular cut onto it. And this actually looks kind of cool and kind of nice, so I might leave it. But that's what a chamfer does. And the purpose of these is if you don't want like sharp edges. If you want rounded, you use a fillet. If you want chamfer, you use if you want it not rounded and kind of slanted like this, you use a chamfer. And that's what this does. In design for like actual tools and like fixtures, and in the real world, people use this for chamfers for like screw holes. So the countersunk screws kind of have something to grasp onto, so they're kind of flush with the surface that you're screwing into it. But that's the point of a chamfer. So I'm going to click OK here. Hardly know her. Oh, Autodesk Fusion almost broke. All right. So now we created a sketch, we extruded it, we cut it, learned about chamfers and fillets. The next thing I'm going to do, which I'm going to pause my screen for a second really quick before I do, just to make sure I don't leak anything or pull up any files or something. So I'm going to add an image. Let me unfreeze this for a second. So when you go up here, you click insert and you click insert. I'm sorry, you have to be in the sketch first. Create a sketch on this surface. Insert. I think canvas? Yeah, canvas. All right, I'm going to close this real quick to do this so it doesn't just pull up all my files. All right. Canvas, you're going to click insert from your computer. And what I'm... All right, so now this is back. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use a Mets logo because I actually have to make a coaster for something anyway. And I wanted to do the Mets. So I'm going to click OK, and now you have a logo in here. This doesn't make anything in the 3D model, or it doesn't. It just adds it for us to see. It's not going to do anything to the model itself, like I just said. So what we do with this is now we have a sketch, and you see this right here. So we're going to kind of outline it in this model so we can create a 3D model from this sketch. So it's going to take a little while to do like the stitching of the baseball, but for right now I'm going to create a circle that goes to the bottom of this, the blue area for the city. It's a little bit short, but that's okay. We're not trying to be perfectionists. Then I'm going to outline this this skyline. So zoom in, you just kind of go like this, and like I said, we're not trying to be perfectionists, just to get the general shape. So what I did here was I clicked the line tool, clicked the edge of the circle, and just kind of am tracing the outside of this picture here. So this is one of the things that I did for the keycaps when I added the logos on. I do this a lot for whenever I need anything that's, not just a shape or a logo. This is just kind of lines. You literally just create lines, and I'll show you what you do with them after. So it's just making a sketch. So if you had like if you were in Photoshop, I'll show you how to kind of cheat around this later. If you're in Photoshop and you just grab like line tools or splines or whatever, it's this. They have a spline option up here, but you don't really need to use it since they're all kind of geometric. But try to get through this quicker. I don't care if it looks not that great. So you can see on these ones with the rounded edges, I'm kind of just tracing a sharp corner, and I will fix that later and show you. What I'm going to do is create a fillet there so it actually rounds it out. And you can create fillets on 2D sketches, not just 3D models as well, so that's what I'm going to do. Go up to this. And that's not that clean, but that's okay. Like I said, not being a perfectionist. And usually, so let's say that I wanted to actually like line it up with this bottom line here. If I kind of drag on this, you can see that the X means is kind of locked onto it. And then I go here, it kind of traces it to be perfectly in line with it. So now, it won't look all wonky if you zoom out. Not that it really would anyway, because it's going to be pretty small on the coaster, and you're not really going to be staring at this thing to look for imperfections. But, all right, I'll try to go a little bit faster. Well, I don't really need to, I guess, but I will. Yeah, Joe, it's like it's like making the circle. So I'm basically making another shape that I then will extrude. It's just not like a basic rectangle or circle or anything. Oh wait, is this perfectly? No, it's not perfectly mirrored. I'll show another trick, will I? So if this thing, let's say that everything on the left side of right here was symmetric, so it was showing on the right side here as well. There's a trick that I'll show you right now. I'll click check mark to keep this. So let's say we wanted to mirror or like take everything on the left side here and just flip it so it's also on the right side there. Save some time, not have to trace everything. So what you do is you create another line that you want to mirror about, and right here you can see the sketch palette that I kind of talked about with the rectangle and the circle. There's different types of lines. There's construction lines and center lines. I don't really use center lines. What that means is kind of the center of a hole, the center of a circle, but for construction lines, what this means is it's not going to create an actual line that you can use to create a model. It's just kind of like a reference line that you can see, but it does help for things like mirroring. So I'll show you right now. I'm just going to create an arbitrary construction line right here. Boom, there it is. You can kind of, hold on, it's lagging a bit. You can kind of see it just outlined right here. So what I'm going to do is up here you can see in the create tab, there's all these options for the the rectangle, line, circle, the spline, which we didn't use yet but will for the logo, and then there's a mirror. What this does is you select the objects you want to mirror. So right now I'm just going to kind of click and drag to highlight all these buildings. I'm not going to do everything because I'll just go like this. That's, whatever. And then just make sure I have everything highlighted. Okay. Now it says mirror line. So that's the line that you're going to mirror about. So if I click this, you can see that everything just kind of went over there. So now I click OK. Boom. Now everything's duplicated that I highlighted. And if this was, a symmetric skyline, we'd be done. But it's not, so we'll get back to this. But I just figured I'd show off the mirror tool because it saves a lot of time. Also, you got to make sure you don't forget to change it out of a construction line type because, like I said, you can't create like a 3D or a surface to extrude from with the construction lines. So now we're back to normal lines, just kind of tracing out the skyline. Also, I apologize if it's when I hover over the areas that we can extrude, it kind of flashes a bit, so I'm sorry for that because that might be a bit annoying or aggravating. All right, we're almost done. Go down here. And all right, skyline's done. So next we'll do the bridge because this won't be too hard. Outlining this. This will be a little bit annoying, but all right. Actually, I can show another feature. So now I'm outlining that, and I'm going to use the spline tool. So right here, we got to create a curve. You could create an arc. Actually, I'll show that off. So when you click create, it kind of shows a lot of other things you can do that aren't really necessary. Well, I mean, aren't very common. They're necessary for some things, but right here, I'm going to create a 3-point arc. What I'm going to do is select the edge of the arc right here. Select the, I believe it goes outside, then you select the bottom. I'm going to select this edge right here. And then, yep, so now if we zoom out, you can see I can kind of create an arc right here. So what I'm going to do is kind of line this up to the bridge. It's not perfect like in the logo, but again, do I care? Not really. Looks good enough and nobody will realize. All right, I'm going to do the same thing here. And hopefully it just won't look kind of like wonky. Good. It's kind of off, but I mean, once we get rid of the image, it's just going to look like a bridge. You're not going to have the image behind it to make you say, hey, that doesn't match the actual logo. All right, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to be lazy here and just kind of create straight lines because, like I said, you're not going to be looking for that. Usually if I wasn't like live streaming this, I'd probably take my time, but just to kind of save time and be a little bit less boring. All right, so now I'll kind of show another, no, I'll do this the old-fashioned way because this trick wouldn't work that I'm thinking of. But as I'm creating these vertical lines, you can kind of see that there's this line here that we're going to have to get rid of, and I'll kind of explain what I'm going to do with that once I finish tracing all these out. And another thing here, actually, this palette, never mind. It's going to do the mirror tool, but sometimes, so see how right here we have these lines that are kind of attached to this arc that we created. I was thinking about mirroring it about this green line here. The issue with that is I don't know if these would line up to this arc perfectly, then that would cause some issues, so I'm just going to take the extra minute or two to draw this out without screwing something up. So a lot of like logo tracing is a bit tedious, a bit annoying, but at the end it looks pretty cool to have a logo or a design or a drawing on a 3D print, which is really nice. Made a couple coasters before that have logos like this, like I made a Spider-Man one, a Batman one for one of my friends. All right, so now I'm done tracing these out. You can see these lines here. So right here in the Modify tab, which has these fillets. Oh, actually, let me fix this that I told you guys I would fix before and never did. So up here in the Modify tab for sketches, you can do all these different things like fillet and chamfer, which we now know what those are, just on 2D sketches instead of a model. And then trim. These other things I don't really do. Sketch scale means you can make the scale of the sketch larger, so you can, let's say we wanted this 10% bigger, we can do that, but I'm going to do fillet right now. So if I click this edge and this edge, and then I can go 0.02 maybe, I'll do 3. And it matches that, and then just click enter, and boom, you got fillets there, and there's no other spots that we need them. So you can do that for sketches and models just like I showed before. And then now down here, the other modification we need to make to the sketch is clicking trim. So what this does is it trims a section of the sketch between 2 points. So right here, you can see this curve that we have between these 2 lines. We don't really want it there because we want this to be like a solid extrusion, kind of like the bridge is for the actual picture. So we're going to get rid of this. And everything you click just disappears. You might get some warnings, which you can't really see on my screen, but you get a warning sometimes when you remove it and there's like a dimension to it, and you know you're removing a part of the line, but that's okay because we're not creating anything crazy here that's going to be, you know, in some type of product. It's just going to be a coaster for personal use. Getting rid of these. All right, so now we got a bridge, we got the outline of the city, and then we're gonna have to outline the Mets logo. 1 second, I'll be right back. Just gonna fill up my water bottle. All right, sorry about that. Okay, all right, so now we're gonna outline the Mets logo. So what we're gonna use now for the tool is the fit point spline. So we're gonna outline, I think we're just gonna outline the logo. We don't really care about this two-tone type of logo like with the orange and the white. We just kind of want it to say Mets. So I'm gonna outline the white. So for those of you that ever use Photoshop or Microsoft Paint or anything messing around in like types of like art apps on your computer, on PCs, it's kind of the same idea where you pick points around curves and it picks the best path, or the path with some type of curvature to create curves like this. And how many times am I going to say curves in that sentence? All right, so you click this, and then since this is such a sharp turn, I'm going to click check mark. It's going to finish that spline, and we're going to start a new one right at the end of it. So still just outlining. Doesn't have to be perfect, like I said, probably 20 times. Now we're going to go here, and then okay. And then for these flat parts, we're going to go back to normal lines. Oh, I just realized that it still says be right back. Okay. So all I did was I clicked fit point spline up here, traced around this to create these two splines, which I'll show again in a second. And then now going back to line, you click this and then trace a flat line to the edge over here. Finish that. Go back to the spline to outline this very slightly curved edge. Click OK. Now we're going to create a new spline at the end of this one to kind of trace around this part of the M. And then can't go too far because you want to make sure you maintain the curvature of the logo. So if I click like out here, you can see that it kind of loses up over here. So you want to make sure you select enough curves to adequately outline what you're trying to curve. All right. Continue to do this. Once I outline this logo, I just kind of got to do the stitches on the baseball, and then I should be all set with this. Show you how to export it to an STL. And what an STL is I think it's a stereolithography. I don't know how to say it, but it's a stereolithography, I think. And it's just a type of file that converts a 3D model into like triangles or different types of shapes that gets sent to a slicer software that you can then 3D print from. And what a slicer software does is it takes a 3D model and it slices it into individual layers with a specified layer height that you kind of call out depending on how, didn't mean to do that, depending on how detailed you want it to be. And then it slices that into layers, and then that's how it 3D prints things into layers. It's to be flat with this. All right, that's fine. All right, now we're gonna finish this, go back to splines. And let's say we screw up on a spline, like we'll click this one here and then go back up to here. And then once we finish this loop, I'll show you how to do a correction like that. All right, finish that loop. So this one's a little bit up more than, or a little bit more upwards than we want it to be. So you can see here there's these kind of green lines here. What you can do is you can drag these and move these to fix the curvature of it. You can kind of move this around, which will help us fix it. or if you grab the end of it, it kind of changes the rotation, so it kind of screws up the whole spline, so I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to leave this here, and that's looking good. All right. So that's another thing that you can do with splines. Done with the outline of everything. Almost there. See, I'm hoping to do more live streams like this of, I mean, right now this isn't really a video or a project that I'm working on, more of just kind of like a tutorial and something that I was going to make for somebody anyways, so I might as well throw this in. But when I'm working on designs for projects, it would be kind of fun or interesting to kind of just live stream while creating the model. So if that sounds interesting, definitely let me know, and I will do that in the future. So we just, now that we've finished the outline, we just got to kind of make these holes on the inside. Only 2 for this. I'm going to end this here and then use a line to connect those so it stays kind of sharp at that edge. All right, and we are done outlining. So click finish. So now I can click on this. Oh, never mind, missed one, sorry. So kind of what I said before, if you go down here, it's kind of a history of everything that you've done. So we have this sketch, which is the sketch of what we just drew with the skyline and the Met. So if I right click on it, I click edit and it goes back to it. And the picture's not there yet for some reason, even though I inserted that before, but this is what it's kind of going to look like. So let me finish this, drag this. What we'll do is we'll extrude this anyway. So I'm going to click E. I'm going to extrude this by about a 1/16 of an inch. So it's extruded, and then I'm going to create a new sketch on top of this surface to then cut from for this. And the reason I'm doing that is because for some reason when I open up that sketch, the image can't appear, so I want to make sure I get, you know, the right size cutout for this. And I'll do a spline for this last one to make it fit this curve a little bit better than just a straight line would. And finish sketch. So now I can click this, I can click E, and I can either extrude it downward a 1/16 of an inch because I know that's what it is, but let me show another trick that we can do. So over here, this kind of pops up when you click extrude or cut. Instead of specifying it by a distance and then putting that distance in here or in here, you can specify it by an object. So if I click object and I click select and I click this surface here, it's going to cut down until this plane that's blue and highlighted in red is flush with this surface here. So 0.063, which is 0.0625, just round it up. You click OK and boom. So now the only, oh, I actually forgot to do the skyline, but we can do that now. So if I go back to this sketch, which you can see down here, it's right here. If I click edit, I can click extrude here, and I can go up another 0.0625. Do that, and then once I'm done, I can hide the sketches. I can hide the canvas, which is the image, hide the sketch, and this is what it looks like. I didn't do the bridge yet, and I might invert it so they're actually cut. And I might actually extrude this whole outside ring too so it looks flush, but so that's where we're at for right now. All right, so now I click this one, and then I'll click this and I'll extrude that, and I'll do 0.0625 again. Then let me turn off the canvas so you guys can see this. So now this is what we're working with. I kind of like how the city's cut out and everything else is flush. You know, maybe we will do some kind of outline because it doesn't look, it looks a little weird. Let's see. Or you know what we'll do? Let me see if I can do this. So make it kind of have that look that it had before. Actually, so if you click fillet and then you click a surface, you should select this whole surface, and if I type 0.01, does that work? No, I can't do that on this edge. So what I was trying to do is kind of fillet all the edges around this highlighted blue area. So it would kind of give the illusion that it has that kind of border that you can see, like the white border around the orange. But it won't let me do that because of how sharp these corners are, so you can't really fill it all the time. It's annoying a little bit. So let me see if I can chamfer, which I highly doubt I'll be able to do. 0.1. Oh, can I? 3.02? No, I can't. Well, all right. I think it looks good. All right. So now we got to put in the stitching. And what I'm going to do to kind of make it look interesting is extrude it. I'm going to extrude it here where it's in this blue in the city skyline, and then cut it here when it's on this surface. So what we're going to do is select sketch or something. Turn off the canvas for now. We're going to select me. There we go. All right, I wanted to select this. Yeah, actually, no, I want to select this. All right, I'm going to create a sketch again, and we're just going to outline this. And this is going to be a bit more tedious than before, so you can copy and paste things in here, similar to just like copying and pasting text on your computer or images, or I didn't need to do that. So this is an issue where I'm going to kind of cheat to fix it. I didn't mean to draw this section, so we're going to do this anyway, and then I'm going to click trim again, get rid of the point that's past that. Now we are good. All right, so we add a line here, straight line here. And now we have this. And if I click copy and then paste, it doesn't do anything. If I highlight the outside edge and then click move/copy, make sure you click create a copy, you can just kind of free drag it to the next one. And you can rotate it a little bit too. So it's not going to match perfectly, but like I said before, we're not going to be looking at this logo. Click OK, and then I can just kind of repeat that. But in this situation, you can see it kind of gets bigger. So maybe I'll just take my time. I don't really care if it I don't really care if it has like the divots here or whatever, if it matches the logo perfectly. So I'll click OK. Some loud music. All right, what we're going to do to kind of save time between hopping on different tools is everything that has a flat line that we're going to do like right here between this and this and right here, we're just going to skip, go through everything with the spline tool, do this quickly that way. Then come back with the line tool after, and it's very quick to just add lines. Okay. And last one, this side of the M. There is a tool, I believe, that you can use to, I think it's called like rasterize or something, where you can actually just like create sketches from the outside of images like this kind of, it just automatically does it. But I don't think it's in, I mean, Fusion might have it. I might just be wasting my time, but it doesn't always come in clean when you do that because of different shading on images. Obviously, this image doesn't really have shading because it's just a two-dimensional sketch, but so it probably would have rasterized fine, but this is a cool way to kind of show how to use splines, how to use lines, how to use fillets, and then how to use whatever you're making to create a sketch. And then use that sketch to create a 3D model. Boom. Okay. If anybody tuning in or watching has any questions about, things that they want to make or create or any other designs, feel free to ask. Eventually, I want to do with the Discord server that I have. If you're not in it, you can check the links on any of my more recent videos and join. But in the Discord server that I have, I want to eventually do like design projects with people. And then with those design projects, kind of just have a live stream going through them, just like, let's say there's a prompt of like something in the kitchen, like we want to, create something like a salt shaker or I mean, a coaster, I guess, would be used in the kitchen, maybe not, but so you could design something with a prompt kitchen that has to do with that. And then I can do a live stream looking at all the designs and kind of picking my favorites and explaining why and saying how you could improve, other things you could do, and different ways to do what you did. And that would be a fun type of thing to do with a Discord server. Kind of got the idea from somebody that, if you've ever seen the YouTube videos from the channel Corridor Digital, the guy Clint from that actually creates 3D renders, and then has like a community that they do render challenges with, and it's kind of the same idea where everybody learns at the same time to create some fun renders. So this would be kind of everybody learning to model, create your own models to 3D print instead of depending on downloading from Thingiverse, or if you're new to kind of 3D printing as a whole and you want to learn how to design, or if you're just just like hanging out and being part of a community, that would be fun to do. But okay, the stitching's taking a bit. Apologize, it's not the most exciting thing to watch. But we're almost there. I think actually with these last couple, I could probably no, I can't. I was gonna say I could probably get away with some straight lines. We also gotta do this up here, so bear with me. Once we finish this model, kind of show you if you're new to 3D printing as a whole, my slicer, or the slicer software that I use, it's Cura. A lot of people are familiar with that, and kind of how you go from a 3D model in Fusion to creating a 3D model, or I'm sorry, importing a 3D model into a slicer and creating a 3D printable object. All right. I can get away with that. Alright, we got all the splines done, so what I'm going to do here is finish this with a bunch of lines. You kind of get your head wrapped around all the tools in the design tool, or the features in the design tool. It's pretty easy to use. It's just kind of tedious to do things like this. You got to be ready to dedicate some time to you know, making simple things like a coaster. But once you make them, it's pretty cool to, you know, design something from scratch and print it. This song. So everything that's kind of in the grayed out area means that it's going to be, we're not going to use it. So the reason that I don't really care what this shape looks like is I'm just going to select this, whatever part of the sketch is on this surface. This isn't, so although this, you know, kind of looks wonky, that's fine because it's not going to show up. Almost halfway there. Extend it a little bit on that one. Okay. So just to see if this works, we'll do the top half in a little bit. So I have the sketch finished. if I control click, which is kind of similar to, you know, a lot of things on your computer, if you control click, it highlights many closed loops. And as you can see, it's not selecting this one here, which means this loop is not closed. So let me go back and edit. I missed a couple lines. My apologies. So now should be closed. All right, this. Yeah, I think when it highlights dark blue, well, it won't do that now because I'm in the sketch itself. All right, this should be good. Finish again. All right, so click this. Now I'm control clicking everything that's on this bottom surface here. Oh, that one's not closed either. Oops. I can do that after. This one seems to be open as well. This one too. Wasn't paying attention. All right, so now I click E to extrude. We can drag it up, but we know we want to get it to go 0.0625. Actually, we'll go a little bit less for the stitching to make it look a little bit different. So I'll do 0.04. Sure. Instead of cut, sometimes like because it's in a little bit of this gray area here, it's in something, you have a bunch of options, which join means kind of use the 3D model that you already have or the 3D body that you already have and join it with this new 3D extrusion that you're creating, which is what we do want to do. But you can also cut, which we know about. Intersect, which means wherever it intersects, it'll cut. If you have something that's not on this actual plane and you're trying to cut from it, it's kind of confusing unless I use it, which I'm not going to, so I don't want to poorly explain it. But new body means it creates a new body that isn't really attached to this one, so it wouldn't save as a conjoined STL to print with. And then a new component is, it kind of creates a new part that you can save. So we're going to join. We're going to click OK. We're going to wait a little bit because my computer's slow right now. And then boom, the stitching is up. Let me turn off the canvas. You can see that's right there. So that looks starting to look pretty good. We're just going to do the stitching up here, and then we will be all set. I do still have to cut the stitching that's over here, and I do have to fix these ones here. So I'm going to do that right now. Sketch. Close that, but I will. Finish. All right, I think those are the only two. So now if I go back here, right click and edit feature, it'll edit the extrusion. And if I click this, it kind of shows the profiles that I highlighted before to create the extrusion from. If I hold control, I can select the ones that I just fixed, click OK, and now it looks like what we wanted it to look like. All right, so now going back to the sketch, we're gonna click. So these right here, you can kind of see this is, I kind of glossed over this before. Origin, I think it just shows the origin and the three planes that I talked about. The bodies, we only have one body in here, which means one 3D physical body. If we clicked create new body instead of join, there would be a bunch of bodies in here, but we just want one. Canvases usually isn't in here, but since we have the Mets picture, that's what this is. And then the little eye either shows it or hides it. And then sketches. So usually when you finish a sketch, if you don't want it to be like, if I highlight all these, it's a lot of blue and a lot of ugly things you don't want to see. So usually it automatically hides them. For this, we want this to be shown again because we want to reuse these bodies here. So now that this is showing, if I click E again to extrude and click profiles, it's kind of, you can't really grab it because it's underneath this surface that it wants to grab automatically. So what we're going to do is click edit sketch. So it will highlight, oh, I lied, it won't highlight these. Hold on. All right, what am I going to do? Let's see. So what I can do is click all the edges. Control click all, oh, I don't want the dot, I want the edges. And that'll select everything. And we're going to copy them, create new sketch. sketch. Hold on. Click this, click create new sketch, so it'll start a sketch on this surface and then paste. And then they'll just paste right on top of that. The reason I couldn't grab them before is because they were kind of hidden under that surface. Now I highlight all three, click E to extrude, and then we're gonna wanna extrude it to object, and we'll go down to here. And okay, and boom. So that's the rest of that one. So we shouldn't have to do that with this last remaining section here because it's all on the same surface. So now I'm going to create the last sketch of this. And I guess we could do the circle out here too, but we don't really need to. All right, so now fit point spline. Since this is taking a little bit longer than creating an actual 3D model of something that's very geometric and very simple, doesn't have a lot to it, will be pretty quick. So I can do that without any measurements and just kind of show a general how I did that, since I do want to make a video on that eventually. But then I will actually do an in-depth one next time, the next time I live stream, to actually be able to create a cut for a YouTube video, standalone video. Sometimes you can see after I finish drawing a spline, I kind of wiggle my mouse and have to go up here. Sometimes Fusion glitches out a bit and doesn't let me actually create what I'm trying to create, so I gotta re-click the button. That's all I'm doing when that happens. Just didn't mean to do that. Well, not going to select that anyway, so we're good. All right, we're almost getting there. Let's see, a couple more. For anybody just joining, what I'm doing on this stream is just kind of showing how to use the design tool. It's kind of boring right now because I'm just creating splines for a logo. But it will get a little bit more interesting in a couple minutes when I finish this. Cheat a little bit and dumb it down a bit. Okay, rest we can do with lines. Boom. Oops. All right. That's the last of these stitches. So let's select all the faces, or all the closed loops. Also some shortcuts that I'm kind of using and glossing over if anybody's actually trying to learn the software. So to rotate, you just push in the middle mouse button or the middle mouse wheel and then kind of just move it, move your mouse around. To pan, if you hold control while you do that, it pans instead of rotating. All right, so click E one last time. We're gonna extend to object again. We're gonna do to this surface. It's gonna cut, and we are going to hide the canvas and see what it looks like. It looks pretty good. Let me hide these sketches too. So there we are. It looks pretty good. I think the last thing I'm gonna do is kind of create the outline of the ball. I wasn't gonna do it, but pretty easy, and it'll make it look a little bit better. So click this again, create one more sketch of a circle, and we're gonna go right. Go a little bit past the stitches just to get that, and then we're gonna finish sketch. click the edit this, and we're gonna go extrude it down a little bit. We'll go negative 0.02, which is very, very small. 2.5, just to kind of get that outline. And yeah, there will be a little bit of dirt kind of stuck in here and not very cleanly, but it'll do the trick to hold the coffee cup and it will look kind of cool. So yeah, so now we have this finished. The 1 second. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is create this into a 3D model, or I'm sorry, an STL file to 3D print it. So 1 sec, let me click something to make sure it doesn't. All right. All right, so when I show it, if I click save up here in the top left, you can save it under different projects that you have. I'm going to save it as Mets Poster. Save. So to export it as an STL, you go over to bodies over here that I talked about before. And then you right click on the body you want and you click save as mesh. No. 1 second. Wait. Yep, okay. You click save as mesh. 1 second. Go back to the screen. All right, right click, save as mesh. And then you have different formats. So you can save it as an STL, binary, unit type, inch. You can change it to millimeters because most slicer files use millimeters. So here you can see this like monstrosity of triangles and lines and all those shapes. So it uses, that's what STL binary means. It creates a shape out of all of these points that you see, and like it creates as perfect of a circle as it can with what it has with all those lines. So if I did STL ASC2, I'm not too sure. It's probably a different type of methodology, but same kind of idea. Refinement. So if I did low, it would use a lot less triangles to make not as good of a mesh. So I usually keep this as high, unless it's like a crazy object that would break your computer if you did that. So now I click OK, and it'll ask me where I want to save it. And for that, I'm going to hide my screen to make sure it doesn't pull up anything. All right. So yeah, so you save it. I'm going to save it as Mets Poster. It's going to save as a .stl file. Click save, and boom, there we are. All right, now 1 second as I open up my slicer. So we're done with the first 3D model, which might be the only 3D model for today that we're actually going to show how to print. But all right. Okay. So this is called Kira. It's made by Ultimaker, and it's a slicer software that this volume here that you can see outlined by the blue wireframe cube or rectangular cube is the volume that your printer can actually print. And you kind of dictate that, or you can download a profile that matches your printer. But this is for my Ender 3, as you can see up here. That's what I have, an Ender 3 basic that I got back in like 2018. And then this bottom plane on the XY plane is the bed. So where your printer is actually going to print from. So if I click File, and I click Open Files, Desktop. So I'm going to click Mets Coaster right here. It's going to open it. It's going to be yellow. It's just kind of what Kira does. And then you can fix it to be flat onto the build plate. So you can do that by clicking rotate over here. You can scale it if I wanted it larger, and then to fix it, you just go back to 100%, click enter, and everything's back to normal. And then you can also move it around if I wanted it over here, if I wanted it down here, but for now I think we're going to do 0 and 0, keep it right in the center. And then there's all your options here for like how fast you want to print it, the layer height, which means when you slice it, how many layers you'll actually have and at what height they will be at, which I'll show you in a second, and like just all these other features that you can play with to get a better print. So right now I'm using a 0.4mm nozzle. I'm not going to actually print this right now. I'll print this at a later point, but if I click slice with all these settings, it's going to slice this model into layers, and you'll see in a second what it will actually look like. It'll take 5 hours, 7 minutes at the speed and everything that I'm using right now, and I think I'm actually going kind of fast, so probably the infill density, but if I click preview, it'll show you what it's actually going to print and the paths that it'll take. So these are the kind of lines that the nozzle will travel through. And as you can see, it looks like what we'd expect it to, you know. So if I, over here on the right of the screen, which you can't really see right now, I can kind of drag to show the layers. So these squiggly lines are called the infill lines. You know, you could 3D print everything 100% solid, and like everything just being, you know, it not being hollow at all and completely filled. But this kind of saves you material, and it saves weight, and it, you know, makes the printer print a little bit quicker. So this is kind of the process. It'll start down with this skirt, and the whole point of this skirt on the outside is to make sure that the printer is actually flowing filament well, and you can watch it when it starts, and then it just goes right into this first layer. So it does the first layer, the first couple solid layers, and it goes up to do the infill, and then it starts printing, you know, the logo on top of the infill, then it goes all the way up, and then you have your final coaster. So I have something hooked up on the bottom right of the screen called Octoprint, which just automatically sends the file to my printer without it having to actually be like wired in or saving something and then plugging it in. But what you could also do is if you can click save to file on the bottom right, and you can save it to a USB drive or save it to an SD card depending on the printer you have. Mine takes an SD card. Just put the SD card right into the printer, and then you can print it. So that's kind of the overview of how you go from a 3D model here to something that you actually want to print right here. So the next thing I'll do before ending the stream is just create a new design. So now we're starting from scratch again, empty canvas. And what I'm going to kind of show you is how I create a standard keycap model, which I did in a couple videos. So we're going to start out with a rectangle up top using this bottom plane, like I talked about before. And I'm not going to use any dimensions right now because this is just kind of a general showing of for anybody that's interested. And let's say, you know, let's say a keycap's, I don't know, a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. So we do a 1/2 inch. Oop, didn't mean to raise volume. Click enter. And then now we have that shape that we're going to want to extrude. And let's say it's another 1/2 inch. Let's say it's a perfect cube. So this is what we're starting our keycap with. And we're just going to kind of cut away until we have what we want. So what I'm going to do, usually keycaps have, you know, they're kind of like they have angled sides. It's not perfectly perpendicular to the ground like this. So I'm going to create a sketch on this surface. And usually I would like actually take dimensions and say like, okay, this goes up this much. It's kind of flat. And from this point to the actual edge, it's, you know, like I'll go up, and I'll start another line. I'll measure. I'll say it's about, you know, 0.1. And then I'll just make a triangular edge right here. And then here, since we know this is symmetric, this is where I can use the mirror tool again. I create another construction line right in the center of the object. Click mirror. Click the objects that we would like to mirror, which are these 3 lines. Click mirror line, and then mirror it right across, and click OK. So now we got 2 things. So what we're going to do here is control click these 2 surfaces, or these 2 closed shapes, and then drag it all the way through, cut it all away. So now we have that, and this, this isn't really gonna look that great of a keycap, unfortunately, but just to kind of show the general design process. Then you click create sketch again, and this time what I'm going to do is click on this, the XY plane, because I kind of got rid of the flat planes on the edge of on the sides of the keycaps when I made that cut, and I don't want to cut at an angled down surface, as you can see this creates when I highlight over it. So I'm going to click this, then we're going to create our sketch, and we're not going to be able to kind of snap to the lines like we were able to before, because we're not on a surface with those edges. But so I'm just going to kind of estimate and go here, and go like this, make it a little bit less, than just make an arbitrary shape so we can cut. And then same thing down here, except I'm going to make this a little bit more angled at the bottom. So now click escape, hold control, select these two shapes, press E to extrude, and we're going to want to cut all the way this way. So now you can see when I do that, it's only cutting because we're on the center. The plane that we selected to create this sketch is on the center of this model. So to fix this, see, you can see direction right here. You can change it to two sides, and you can kind of drag whatever you want here if you only wanted to cut like a section of it, or you can drag all the way through, do whatever you want, or you can do symmetric. So whatever we do on one side, it happens on both sides. So we're going to do that. Click OK. And there's a weird looking keycap that I'm going to fix by creating another sketch on top of this, and just making a big, grab this and this, press E, you go down, and we're just going to drag it. And so that looks more like the shape of a keycap. Might not be the right dimensions, but it looks kind of proportionate. So another thing we can do, because they're not always flat like this, right? We can create a sketch on this plane. And what we're going to do is we're going to get a circle. We're going to keep it on this vertical, this y-axis here. Go all the way up here. Kind of go like, well, that's a little bit too big of a curve. Or too big of a, small of a curve radius. We're going to go here. We're going to go like that. And yeah, that looks a little bit ridiculous. But what we do is we go like this. Cut off that section. Go back to trim. Click this. And I know that was quick, but using all the tools that we used to create that coaster before, kind of showing you how I use those in different aspects of different projects. So now we're going to do symmetric again to make it cut all the way through. Click OK, and now we kind of have that little curve that you get on some of the keycaps. You can also do that to some of these edges if you wanted. And then to kind of finish it all up and make sure you don't have any sharp points, we're going to do fillets on each of these edges. This too, because why not? And then we're going to do 0.01. We'll do 0.065. Is that too much? Yeah, for this right now, it's too much. It would realistically be probably that dimension. Now you click that, and then there we are. We got a pretty nice rounded keycap. But the last thing we got to do is kind of, fix this bottom to actually allow the switch to go into the stem of the keycap. So we're going to use a trick to kind of cut from the bottom of this that is called shell. So you click this in the modify tab here, shell. And what this does is you can click a surface that you want the opening of like a shelled object, and you'll understand what I mean in a second. So we want this to be the opening of this, and we want a thickness on the inside. So we're going to do 0.05, do 0.03. And then you click enter, and that's what shell does. So I selected this, and it kind of opened up the whole inside, and then whatever surface I was selecting, it made the open surface. So it kind of created a box out of this, or a thin-walled member instead of a solid member. So I'm going to hide this grid. Just because it's a little annoying to look through it when you're trying to do something on the bottom. I gotta remember where I can actually hide this. I don't remember. Environment, mesh display, visual style. I guess we'll just have to deal with it. All right. So we're gonna create another sketch. And this time, since we kind of have this surface already curved, what we're gonna do is click this plane here on the bottom. And we're gonna create a sketch to fit in here. We're gonna be on this line because we know this is in the center. And we're gonna create our rough estimate of what the switch size would be like. So right there we have the circle that you can kind of see on a lot of keycaps, and then on the inside is the shape where the stem fits into, which is usually a cross. Well, I mean, it is a cross, but there's some keycaps that it's not. I think this is a Cherry MX shape, so what we're going to do is, obviously this would be the same size. I'm just kind of rough eyeballing it right now just for the purpose of showing. We're going to go up here, we're going to trim these edges, and when you click trim, it does kind of take these construction lines into account, so sometimes you got to do more, press it a couple more times. And then now we have this rough shape, and we are going to click this closed loop, press E to extrude, and what we're going to do is we're going to start from an object. We're going to click this, and then we're going to extrude downward to create this solid. So I'm not sure how far down we're going to go, but maybe we go a little bit less than, go right there. That looks a little bit more. But okay, so now that joins it, creates this extrusion from the top rather than from the plane we were actually drawing from. And then one last kind of thing we can do that we don't really need to, but what I did in one of my designs is I added a kind of like a reinforcement, like a structural reinforcement that attaches to the cylinder that goes over here. And what you do there is you just kind of grab this surface, you create a sketch, and you can like kind of just like extrude another rectangle, and then fill it in between. I'll show you. I'll do one real quick. So I'll do this. I'll click this. We'll go here. And say, I don't know. We'll do a little structural thing there. Finish sketch. It's not really in line, but it'll serve the purpose. So we're gonna click E. We're gonna click Start Object. Back here again. Extrude downward. Join. And it's not gonna do it. All right, we'll skip that right now. But that's something you can do to this. But this is just kind of showing roughly how I created a keycap. I will do another live stream to actually create a video on how to model your own keycaps with little 3D modeling experience, because the tutorial with no 3D modeling experience that I created was doing pretty well, so I wanted to make another video on that. But yeah, that's kind of it for this stream, just to kind of show the general design process and the different things that you can do with the simple design tools here. So the main thing we created here was this coaster. Let me change the view a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Shaded with visible edges. So created this coaster that I'm going to 3D print at some point. Maybe I'll make a YouTube short just showing the coaster, just so you guys can see how it came out. And yeah, a couple of the videos that I'm working on right now is to repurpose an old CPU fan to use as kind of like a headphone holder for your desk. Kind of sounds lame, but hopefully it'll look cooler than how I'm explaining it. And then a couple other things. I want to make some resin keycaps and kind of show that process, and not just 3D printing resin, like actual resin keycaps with a kit that I bought, using 3D printing to create logos and things that go inside of those keycaps. Then I have couple other design projects that I have in my mind that I have not started yet, but thanks for watching the stream, and